All right, it's episode number 2 of Splash Hit, our new show here on Follow Territory Network. Subscribe to Splash Hit Territory on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Susan Slusser, frequent contributor, my friend, is back for show number 2. Susan, what's going on?
Not a lot. Glad to be here again. For people that didn't listen to the first show, first of all, go back and listen to it. Why didn't you? Second, explaining very quickly. I spend like the first month of the off season in London, so that's where I am right now. If things look a little dark, it's a lot later here than you are in beautiful California. Although it sounds a little stormy today.
A little stormy, and I have to get up early to do this because we have like an 8-hour time difference. So I have bags under my eyes. It's a little dark where you're at right now, but we'll figure it out and get it done. It was fun doing the first show, and we got a lot of great response on Twitter. I think people were excited that the Giants have a new show on the Foul Territory Network. So a lot of clicks, a lot of views. We're going to have a lot of big guests. We're just trying to hit the ground running. You and I get a rhythm together. And then we're going after the big fish. We're going to have big guests on here, and it's going to be fun to talk to some of the bigger people in Giants land.
Yeah, and that I hope that might be when the days where my schedule does not permit me. So you might have some amazing people, but I hope that maybe we can save some of the if you land a super big fish, I hope maybe I can sneak into the studio on one of those. So we'll see what we got coming up first here.
Well, I'll just run down the show real quick. Bruce Bochy's back in the fold. You had a great article with Greg Johnson, a little Q&A. So there's a lot of Giants news for our second show, but I think the number one is Bochy's back, man. And when you talk about a manager that doesn't have a lot of or zero professional experience, I mean, what a resource to have Dusty Baker and Bruce Bochy around Tony Vitello.
Yeah, I was so delighted when Greg Johnson mentioned, just sort of in passing the other day, is like, oh, wait, it hasn't been announced yet. But, things are kind of progressing here with Bruce Bochy, and it makes so much sense, not just for Tony Vitello, but oh my gosh, what a resource, 4-time World Series champion manager. Are you kidding? To bounce things off along with Dusty Baker, but also for Buster. I mean, Bochy was his manager almost his entire career. So he's a guy, he can take an objective opinion coming from another organization, the Rangers, and come in kind of with fresh eyes and really just be a resource for everybody. But especially right now, the two most important people in the organization in Buster Posey and Tony Vitello. So I mean, there's no downside to having Bruce Bochy around. And for the media, we love it. Let's get Bochy on sometime.
Look at Bochy. Tony Vitello's in the works as we speak. So the word is out that we're trying to get him on this podcast. But Susan, when you talk about having people around the organization as resources, I've been with organizations where they just pay a guy to stand in the corner and maybe talk to a few reporters and shake hands with some fans. And you keep like legends around. I remember my time with the Yankees. They participated in spring training. It was a lot like the Giants this year. Ron Guidry was throwing me batting practice. And then I went in the cage and Don Mattingly's doing flips to me. And all I can think of is Don thinks my swing sucks. He must be laughing at me right now because he's one of the best hitters ever. We'll get to Don Mattingly in a little bit when we get to the Hall of Fame discussion. But to have these guys around and then to use them, not just figureheads in a wax museum of great Giants managers of the past, but we're talking about Hall of Fame managers. Dusty Baker's a Hall of Fame manager. Obviously, Bruce Bochy's a Hall of Fame manager. We could do a whole show on how I think Felipe Alou is a Hall of Fame manager too. So not too many organizations had back-to-back Hall of Fame managers. But to have those guys around for Tony Vitello, and in game, you're on your own, baby. The training wheels are off. You got to make the decisions real time. But like maybe after the game to open a bottle of wine in his office or get there early and say, what would you have done differently last night? And all of a sudden, that experience helps. And I think, I don't know if you have similar experiences as being a writer starting out and having mentors, but, I had some as a player and as a broadcaster where if I didn't have those people, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think it's really important to have somebody who's been through it before. But even more so in a job like manager, there are very specific situations that crop up, and sometimes ones nobody's seen before. You're rarely going to have a situation that Bruce Bochy has not run into at one point or another.
It's great. It's great. It'll just be great to have Boch around from a selfish standpoint. I've missed him. And when I came back to San Francisco, we'd sit together in the games, probably right by you. And I got to know Boch a lot better than I did when he was the manager and I was just doing the pre and post game. So excited to have him back. I'm also excited about your interview with Greg Johnson, Giants owner. And it was in the Chronicle, and you talked about a number of things, and the article is getting a little bit of play too. Fans are kind of dissecting what he said to you, and anytime he talks about things and says anything about payroll or anything about Dodgers, it's obviously in the news. But you talked about him with Tony Vitello, the hiring, the offseason needs. So maybe just break that down a little bit. How'd that conversation go? Was it like was it a friendly conversation, or was it all business? Like, take us behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah, Greg is always good to deal with. We try to talk at least once a year, and I like doing it in a Q&A format, so it's really transparent. What we talked about, how he sort of approached his answers, what we delved into. We talked for so long, I actually had to cut quite a bit of it for space. And then I wound up doing something I almost never do and reordered it to start off with the Bochy stuff, because that was such a interesting bit, very exciting bit of news. But some of the highlights, I'll tell you, are really that Greg Johnson is happy to go over the threshold, the tax threshold. So that 185 million payroll right now, that could go up. He sees them going after at least one or two veteran starters, but he was pretty clear that would be probably somebody on a shorter term deal. So that
Max
was
Scherzer.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, Scherzer. Scherzer makes the most obvious choice. I really like Verlander, but you're not going to get both of them on the same team. This is not a retread of the Tigers, I don't think.
Or the
But
Mets. They're together in New York, weren't they, with the Mets for a minute?
yeah, were they?
I believe so.
I don't. I think that's. I think that's probably you're going to get one or the other.
Yeah.
But Scherzer would be fun. You have one Hall of Famer to follow, and then another one in the next year. That would be. Who wouldn't love that? So that would be super fun. But he had really positive things to say about Tony Vitello, of course. But he said, kind of like all of us, when Buster Posey first brought up the name, he was a little sort of, he had to Google him. And then he immediately called a bunch of people he knew who'd gone to Tennessee to gauge their reaction. Of course, you talk to somebody from Tennessee and the reactions are just off the charts positive. So he thought, okay, well, this is interesting. And then as things started progressing, and then he talked to Tony Vitello, I think all you have to do is talk to Tony Vitello and get like a really genuine sense of him. And he thought, this guy isn't just, it's not smoke and mirrors. And he mentioned that Dwayne Kuiper had said to him after the press conference, I thought this guy might be just like kind of a really good BSer, but that was really genuine. And, Dwayne Kuiper's seen an awful lot of press conferences and done a lot of interviews, and he played the game. So for him to say that kind of tells you this isn't just a big personality who knows how to charm people. There's substance there.
I think there's an interesting quote from Greg in there about like you could hire a third base coach or a bench coach or a pitching coach or somebody that's been around the game and whatever with that. Like it's their time to be a manager, but it took a lot of, for lack of a better word, guts to go out and hire somebody with no experience to be the manager of the San Francisco Giants. And I just think the way he was behind it, the way he worded it too, about he's a winner and he's been successful before and he's won before, where maybe a third base coach or somebody that has never managed doesn't have that same resume of winning. Maybe they're part of it, but they haven't been driving the ship. They're not the head person. And Tony's done that before, and he said that was very attractive to him.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that first of all, it ultimately, and Greg was very clear about this was Buster Posey's decision, but of course, ownership does need to be behind it. And Greg mentioned not once, but twice that the contract did kind of take them a little bit by surprise. They were like, wait, can we even get him? Like, this guy's making a lot of money. And, that's, and you know what, I brought along some visual aids. So just to toot the Chronicles horn a little. Let's give you a little taste of what it looked like today.
Oh,
That's
nice.
online. And I think at some point soon, this story, so sfchronicle.com, at some point, I think it will be in the paper, but a good chance, I think, in the Sunday paper, which every sports writer always, it's kind of the dream is to have it be in the Sunday sports section. So anyway, that's kind of what it looks like on our website right now. If you want to run out and check it out, the whole thing, which is quite long, I hope will be in the Sunday paper.
Be
too.
careful what you
Nice.
screenshot and put up on this podcast, by the way.
I know. I am. I'm trying to, I'm going to try to throw in a few little Chronicle things here and there because
No, I love
they've been
it.
nice
I
enough
love
to
it.
say that I can be a frequent guest with you, and which was very kind of them. So it's super fun. But yeah, the mention twice of the contract did kind of make my ears perk up. But they did what it took to get him, and then they thought, yeah, he's got a pretty good situation. He might not leave. Remember that couple of days when everybody was saying, "What's happening? Why isn't this happen?" That's exactly what was happening. He was really weighing a lot of things, and ultimately chose the Giants.
I think that speaks to his character, and I had a little inside information. I won't name names, but when the negotiations were getting down to the nitty gritty, where it was either you're in or you're not, that there was kind of a somber attitude there. And I said that I liked that. And I think you and I have talked about this off the show, where if he just said, "Peace out, Tennessee, I'm a big league manager. Thanks for the memories." But the fact that he had to think about that, and I don't think it had anything to do with money. I think he just talking to him a little bit after the press conference and hanging out with him that day. He loved it there. He loved everything about it. He loved where he lived, working with young kids, recruiting kids, going into homes, talking to parents, teaching boys how to be men and be accountable and to be winning players. And there's going to be a lot of aspects at the major league level that are similar, but there's also going to be some. These are grown ass men with like long hair and beards. That doesn't happen in college, so it's going to be a little different than that. But just seeing the inside of it, that he was a little bit sad leaving Tennessee. That I like that. Yeah. Because you see whatever college coaches all the time. Lane Kiffin. We can name some football coaches that just bounce around and they're at a new place every time. And you're like, wait, what? You just left all these kids hanging, you left their families hanging, and now you're at a new school for more money. I don't think this was that for Tony. And the fact that he was like kind of somber and sad before he flipped the page. And now he's San Francisco. He's a Giants manager, full go here. But like if he'd have just up and left, I think that would have been weird.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So.
Yeah, I also asked Craig a little bit like to evaluate Buster in his first year. And again, so this is some of this stuff I think was trimmed a little bit for length, but the big swing, that's been kind of the thing that we've of course it's the first thing you notice. But the fact that he's willing to take the big swing, but is very accountable for everything. And he really is he's casting a wide net in terms of getting information behind the scenes. I think ownership's really happy. It's Buster Posey. Of course they're happy, but I think it goes well beyond like, this is a franchise icon for us. This is a guy who I think they really feel like if you need a little bit of a shakeup, this is a guy who's going to get that done. If he doesn't, he said, I think twice, if Buster doesn't like something, he is going to take action. So I like that.
I hope he likes our podcast, Buster. I hope you like our podcast. No, we're going to try to get Buster on here. I'll say this, Susan, I've talked about it on KMBR a lot. I think his first year in the position he's in, president of baseball operations, and you and I have talked during games about this, is an A+. And I know there was a lot of criticism over the airwaves or on social media about some of the things that did or did not happen during the year. And I actually took calls, fire Buster Posey on KMBR. I'm like, if you come on this station and you call in and you say fire Buster Posey, a lot of people listen. You're telling everybody you know absolutely nothing about baseball. So the way he handled it, the humbleness, the willing to learn, the asking questions. What was your takeaway from the game today? What do you think about this? And he just didn't come in and make all these wholesale changes right away. I don't like this. I don't like that. The manager's fired. This guy's DFA. That he just sat back, listened, learned in a very humble, accountable manner. And he knew that, he needed to learn. but the willingness to, in his position, to be able to do that. And then, okay, season's over. I don't like this. I don't like that. And I don't like this. And I'm going to make some changes. In the trades he made for Devers and signing Adames and the guys we got for Tyler Rogers that proved to be valuable.
And Doval.
Buteau, Drew Gilbert, and some people we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah.
So all in all, yeah, 81 and 81, not what Buster imagined, but it was a foundation year. He laid the foundation, and foundations aren't sexy. Have you ever walked into somebody's beautiful home and said, "Oh my God, I love your foundation"? No, you like, your kitchen's beautiful. Oh my God, look at your pool. Nobody ever says the foundation is beautiful. Foundations aren't sexy, but they're the most important part of a home. They're the most important part of a relationship. They're the most important part if you're running a pro sports franchise.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're down there in that part of San Francisco where foundations are extra important because a couple of those condo buildings have gone a little funky. And I'm in Myrtle Heights where we love a good foundation. Yeah, I think with Buster, the fans that have been unhappy, the ones that you're getting calls from, the ones that I've gotten responses from on social media, a lot of it's hindsight, right? Because you look at especially trading Rodgers and Doval, the Giants suddenly get hot after that, and everybody was like, "Why did he trade two of them?" You know, they were really in the doldrums when he traded those guys. Those were the right try. Devers was the right move at the time. Didn't work. Sometimes that happens. Trading those two relievers at that time was the right move, and he got a haul for both those guys. But I mean, especially Tyler Rogers, who could very well be back this offseason. So anyway, what else is going on in Giants news?
Well, I was
in
heartbroken.
a little decision, right, this week.
Sorry to interrupt there, Susan.
Yeah.
I was heartbroken to see that forever Giant Tom Murphy was let go.
Yeah, it was a rough road. You know what?
think I walked past him twice in spring training. I saw him have a pass ball in Philadelphia against the Phillies with Trey Turner on second, and it was a strike, and he missed it, and then he jogged back to the backstop, and I'm on the air, and I can't talk because Joe Rizzo's talking. I just shook the table. Sorry. I'm on Italian. I talk with my hands. I'm on the air, and I'm like, I wanted to scream, "Get the ball! He's going to score! What are you doing?" And then Trey Turner scored. And then he got hurt, and we never saw Tom Murphy again. So
13 games in the Giants.
He should be unhappy with his time in San Francisco because that's a guy we joke about forever Giant all the time. That's one that I don't know Tom Murphy, probably a nice guy based on being around the team the last 3 years. I never saw the guy, so I could see why his time in San Francisco was unhappy for him because he never played.
Yeah, 13 games in 2 years. At the time of the signing, I mean, and I think this right up there with some of the biggest mistakes Farhan Zaidi's made when he was the top baseball executive with the team. It didn't make sense because Joey Bart had been, really good soldier, and it was clear that he was making some improvements. Now, I can see a team saying maybe we don't want a second year catcher with a backup who's only a year or two older, doesn't have much experience. I can see that, but in which case, maybe don't sign a guy to a 2-year deal. Go out and find another veteran who could be your backup But Bart was out of options, and he'd worked his rear off. Was really popular in the clubhouse and in the organization with all his coaches. He was the guy who had to come up and play during the pandemic season when Buster stepped back and he wasn't ready. That didn't help him, all sorts of things. But he had a great attitude, never pointed the finger at the organization, never blamed anyone but himself, and always went and did everything they asked him to work on. So, and Murphy just never seemed like a good fit. He just didn't. And then when he left, he was pretty unhappy. He'd had some injuries. He didn't like some of the ways some of the injuries had been handled. So I think he's probably going to have some grievances. We'll see where those goes. Although we often don't find out the upshot on some of those things. But it was just sort of an unfortunate situation, and now that's over. So yeah, that was a weird one. Definitely a weird one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always on the players' side of things. I don't know what happened behind the scenes. I know the Giants have probably the best medical staff in baseball, and I'm just saying that. They've helped me and my family for years since I was a Giant, and that hasn't stopped. I have more than tons of confidence in that. So I read that article and I was just like, that just sounds like sour grapes, but maybe, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
I just don't know Tom Murphy. In the times that I saw him play, he wasn't a good fit, just like you said. I got to learn how to be more politically correct. All right. We got to change. This is the topic of the day, and I couldn't wait to get to it. We're talking about the contemporary baseball era player ballot. It's players who've made the greatest contributions to the game since 1980. So Barry Bonds, 8 guys, and they're all studs. I mean, come on. And this is where I have trouble, Susan, like bench player talking about who should be in the Hall of Fame, like whatever. Bonds, Kent, Roger Clemens, Carlos Delgado, Don Mattingly, Dale Murphy, Gary Sheffield, Fernando Valenzuela. So this is a Giants podcast, and naturally we're going to go to Bonds and Kent. I'll let you start, and I said this last podcast, and I'll get more in depth after you kind of throw some things out there. I did the numbers on Barry. It's ridiculous. Roger Clemens' numbers are ridiculous. It's not the Hall of Fame until Barry Bonds gets in the Hall of Fame. And I know, I got to stop hitting the table. It's shaking the screen. I know that that this is important to him. And I think it's very important to the Giants fans. It's very important to me. He's the greatest player I ever played with, against, was around on a daily basis. We're still friends to this day, and I see him at the ballpark all the time. And I don't know if it's killing him, but I do know that he cares. And it would be cool, because when you talk about history, like, we have to chronicle everything. So you have numbers to back it up. I have some numbers here, but your thoughts on Bonds and Kent getting into the Hall of Fame?
Well, this is sometimes this is a tricky topic for me, because I'm actually on the ballot committee for the contemporary, for all the eras. So I help formulate this 8-person ballot. We are not at liberty to discuss the inner workings of the ballot committee. I was also on the eras committee when Bonds and Clemens did not get in. I was on the actual committee that decided things during the winter meetings. Same thing, definitely not allowed to talk about the inner workings there. What I can say, and often do, is my BBWAA vote for the Hall of Fame is a matter of record. I am one of the many, many writers. Most of us do make those public, and I have voted for both Bonds and Kent. I switched from not voting for the steroid guys to, at some point, realizing everyone from that era was in, including some players who had been kind of connected to possible steroid use, except for Bonds and Clemens. And I thought, this is ludicrous. You either accept the era for what it was, or you don't. And if you're going to put in the commissioner, many of the top managers, people who knew what was going on behind the scenes, and players who I had covered, and I think there were pretty clear instances where you could say this is a guy who fits that profile, who are already in. So to me, this is a no-brainer. But again, I brought along some a little bit of show and tell here. Similarity scores for Barry Bonds. I don't know how many of you might look at Baseball Reference, but it's pretty much the best when it comes to just finding sheer numbers and then also interesting tidbits. The similarity scores is one, you look and a random player will just match up with like the strangest people, which is kind of fun. You look at Bonds' similarity scores here, and the number 1 comparison for Barry Bonds is Willie Mays. Number 2 is Hank Aaron. You mean number 3 is Babe Ruth? Come on. Why are we even having this conversation? This is a guy who has to be in the Hall of Fame. So I can't really talk too much about how I would vote, because if I vote again on an eras committee, I just can point to my BBWA past voting record. But I do think that we need to make sure that the eras are really truly represented. The Hall of Fame can handle plaques the way they would like. If they want to mention any of the things, there is a steroid exhibit in the Hall of Fame that includes them.
A bunch of needles in the case. Some vials and some syringes.
I think there's some pretty strong headlines.
The Mitchell Brothers team pitcher, or the Mitchell Report team pitcher. Mitchell Brothers is another place in San Francisco, different podcast. The Mitchell Report team photo is in there too. Did you do me in the comps? Because I think Buddy Biancalana would probably come up as my number
Oh,
one
you need to
comp.
check out your comps. Yeah, at some point, I think I think that you would probably get a real kick out of that. But I didn't know. I have not ever FP looked up your comps.
Somebody that mixes Gatorade, it just says.
You
But
let me
really,
know when you're on the contemporary eras ballot, and I'll take a
yeah,
check.
I'll be on there. I got Barry's numbers here. I wrote them down yesterday. It's just insane. 7-time MVP. We know this. 22-year career. Career WAR of 162.8, which is insane. That's a record. Nobody's ever been higher than that. 2,935 hits, which I did not know that he was that close to 3,000 hits. Usually, you would think of Barry, you think of 762, right? It's just one number. Obviously, the home runs. 1,996 RBI, so just shy of 2,000. 601 doubles, 77 triples, 2,558 walks. Unbelievable. And then 73 home runs in 2001. 2004 is the year for me that's just insane. He had 373 at-bats all year because he walked 232 times, which is a record. He had 135 hits in those 373 at-bats, and he hit 362. So 41 homers, but like when you talk about how he changed the game, and Shohei Ohtani was just getting that in the World Series where they give him that treatment. I just don't think it's an incomplete institution unless Barry Bonds is in the Hall of Fame. And
There's
I think
only one reason he's not. There's only one reason, and the Hall kind of has to come to terms with it. And a lot of people said once he gets onto the committees, which what you used to be called the Veterans Committee, they'll put him in. Like the fellow players will recognize. Well, I think it was listed as less than 4 votes. It's 16-member committee, about half, maybe a little more, sometimes players. Perhaps that's not the way either. It's going to be really interesting to watch. And now there's the new rules where I think you can be on twice and then you come off. So if you fail to get enough votes, so it's possible. This is starting now, but it's possible another turn or two through the thing, and he might be done with being considered. Which this is just if so, the Hall has made its own decision of what it wants and doesn't want. And if he doesn't get in, I think that's what the Hall has decided. This is they've had numerous and will have numerous shots to put these guys in, Bonds and Clemens. And if they don't, that's changing the eligibility and the length of eligibility, I think tells you something. Kent
Susan, real quickly,
yeah.
I played in that era.
Yeah.
I know more than any Mitchell report says. I was in the clubhouses. I was on the planes. I saw what was going on. Until you can tell me how many home runs Barry hit off of guys on steroids, 2, then you don't have an argument for Barry Bonds not making the Hall of Fame. So just say out of 762, let's throw 358 of his home runs were off guys on steroids. Because pitchers didn't look the part.
Yeah.
Pitchers didn't go get jacked like Mark McGwire and like Sammy Sosa and other guys. Pitchers just threw the baseball. And by throwing the baseball or long tossing, you're building the muscles up to throw baseball faster. So guys would leave spring training throwing 91 and come back next year throwing 98. And that was everywhere. So a pitcher, you could get away with it because you're not like jacked and going up to the plate. And you just look maybe, 10 pounds heavier, not noticeable. So until you can tell me all that, and I'll just say this, it was way more rampant than what was on the Mitchell report. Like there was tons of guys doing it.
One of the guys that got popped in the middle of it, you'll remember, was Paul Byrd, who was not a particularly memorable pitcher with, at that point, the Indians, not imposing. And I thought if Paul Byrd is among these guys, and there's a good chance there's a lot of guys that we're not considering. But yeah, I mean, it's to me, this is an era that is grossly underrepresented in the Hall of Fame, and that's not what the Hall of Fame is for. And here's Jeff Kent. I'm going to pop up some of his numbers. Jeff Kent is a good example of this. Now, he's not a slam dunk when it comes to numbers. I and many other writers look at the Hall of Fame statistics again on baseballreference.com, which are interesting. There are a couple different formulations about what constitutes a Hall of Famer or a likely Hall of Famer.
I think I've had
Electric-
gray ink noodles once at a restaurant. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think I have too. Actually, I'm from Monterey, so we get a lot of inky
Well,
noodles.
explain this to
Yeah.
the layperson and your dumb partner.
So these numbers are on the left side are Kent's numbers, career, and that what the average Hall of Famer has in these sort of various formulations. And so you can see that from some of these, he's either very close to a Hall of Famer, he is a Hall of Famer, or maybe just borderline south of being a Hall of Famer. He's always been a very interesting candidate for these reasons. But I I think second base is a position that is also underrepresented. I think the era is underrepresented. I certainly hope that Jeff Kent is a guy who the contemporary eras committee look at really closely. I mean, again, I'm on the ballot committee, so all of the names on this ballot are ones that the committee as a whole thought these are people that need to be considered. But I firmly think, and I've thought that other second basemen need more consideration. Not necessarily on this ballot, but I've been big on Bobby Grich, for example, for a long time. He was the best second baseman all around, kind of his era, and he's not in. Alan Trammell's in, and Lou Whitaker isn't. I mean, second base is really sort of maligned. I don't get it. But I would love to see a few more of these guys get in. And I really do hope Kent gets a look because the Hall of Fame, it's the Hall of Fame. Represent the eras, represent the positions. We don't just need a bunch of slugging first basemen and right fielders and starting pitchers.
I'm a firm believer that you either are or you aren't. It's either a 1 or a 0. And I have trouble wrapping my head around people that have gotten in later because we invent statistics that show that we didn't have 10 years ago that show that they could be, might be, should be.
Like so no borderline guys for you? Where do you stand on Kent then?
It's either a F yes or a F no. It's a 1 or a 0 for me. And it's about the eye test. It's about, you see guys you play against, you see guys you're in the dugout with, you're like, that's Hall of Famer. And I don't know that I thought about that with Jeff. I just knew he was a damn good ball player. And he was a good
very good guy.
No, he's better than very good. Like he would tell me things on the bench. I'd be like, I fouled that slider off and I was right on it. So I knew they were going to throw me a fastball the next pitch. And he'd be like, no, stay on the slider because that's what they think you're thinking. He goes, never get off the pitch that you foul straight back. And I go, my whole career. And I got like 15 hits that year by doing that. So he was a good teammate. He was fun to be around. I would say this, and this is probably, I don't want it to go viral, but like if I had Game 7, bases loaded, one person to drive in a run of the two we're talking about, I think I would want Jeff up because he just had a great approach with runners in scoring position.
Jeff where he Kent would let Barry Bonds. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, Barry probably hit a grand slam. They probably both drive the runs in. But like Jeff was so good with like as far as like taking something out of his swing, a lot like Buster Posey, like 2 for himself, 1 for the ball club, go the other way. Barry's gonna hate me for this, but like if you needed a clutch run driven in, Jeff was your guy. And I'm sure there's a lot of
he's a Hall of Famer. You think he's a Hall of Famer then? I think that's what you're saying anyway. So, well. Neither of us is on this current committee, so I guess it's to be continued. We will find this out during the winter meeting.
Years to figure it out. You either are or you aren't.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting day when these results are announced at the winter meeting.
Barry's going to see this and hate me for saying that, but they both would have got the runs in. But like it's like everybody says they wanted Kurt Reeder to pitch Game 7, like that was their guy. Like there's just a certain thing about JK. Like he just stuck his nose in there. Not that Barry wouldn't. I'm just saying, like if you need a sac fly, he's your guy. You need a 2-strike base hit to right, he's your guy. You need a home run.
I'm pretty sure you said he's better than Barry Bonds. I'm pretty sure that's what you said.
Barry Bonds is the greatest player to ever walk the face of the earth. Period. And that's
well, on that note. Certainly stay tuned. That's going to be an exciting day at the winter meetings, which is, I think the winter meetings open the 7th of December, Pearl Harbor Day. So, yeah, sometime that week.
Not touching that one. Susan, we got show number 2 in the books. It was great to see you. I'm going to tease Tony next week. I asked for Tony Vitello, so hopefully we get him. And if we don't, it'll just be some great guest on the greatest Giants podcast in the history of the world, greatest show in the history of the world, Splash Hit Territory, Splash Hit. Subscribe to Splash Hit on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We are part of the Foul Territory Network. Susan Slusser, thank you for being a special contributor today, and I will see you next week.
Fantastic. Thanks, FP.
See ya.